Today in my presentation I'm going to address a very similar topic, or kind of continuing this topic about specification. In particular, going into the detail a bit, and would like to ask you to think a bit about the balance between written specification in an agile project and all other kinds and sorts of communication that leads for the testers to understand what the system should be doing and what test cases they should be using then writing. I also have a subtitle here to which I shall come a bit later during the presentation. So before we go into that, let's just think a bit about what the role of specification, of written specification in a plan-driven project was or is, wherever it's still in operation. By plan-driven approach, I mean all kinds of V model and waterfall model, so the traditional methodologies. Well, there it's quite simple, isn't it? There's one reliable and real source of information for anybody who's working in a project, and this is the written specification. Anything that's outside the written specification is a forbidden area. Okay. Specification is the law. Anybody who deviates from the law is a criminal, right? So I myself, Lord forgive me, have forbidden my developers and testers before in my earlier life, all right, when I was working with waterfall projects, to talk to customers directly, because it had the danger that they might end up coming up with a requirement that's not in the specification, in the written specification. Written specification was the basis for the contract, for programming, for testing, for everything, right? So you just need to specify as much as possible. You cannot specify too much. That's the simple rule of thumb for specification there. Now when you move to the agile world, the scenario is different here. You have all sorts of other tools when you're going to explore what the system should be doing. We have active communication. We have our own common sense. We have previous experiences from other projects. We have general domain knowledge, like when you're a banking expert or have done multiple banking projects, you know already what the financial expectations are in a certain area. Agile methodologies really bring the attention to these parts here. And of course, it's not forbidden at all to do detailed specification. But the main idea behind is not to specify everything to every possible detail, but just specify what's necessary, right? When I first heard this sentence, I thought this was one of the most beautiful sentences in my life, because there's no need to over-specify anything any longer. There's no need for writing specification for itself. Just specify what's necessary. But first, when you come to your project, to the point where you start specifying, you will very soon be faced with the question, what exactly this necessary mean, right? Do I just need to have the product backlog? Do I just write one sentence about each function? Do I write a section about each function? Do I need to have screenshots and printouts about the application? Do I need no specification at all? This is also what you sometimes hear when it comes to specification, right? That agile is about not specifying anything, just jumping into it. Well, I think in certain cases, either of those answers could be good answers. But in order to find the answer for this question, because finding the balance between all sorts of open communication techniques and written specification means exactly finding the answer to this question, I think. I have a thesis for you, my theory, that answers this question, all right. My thesis is that the amount and level of details of written specification necessary by any agile tester in any IT project equals the amount and level of details of a recipe necessary to cook any meal by any cook? Well, that's kind of a jump, isn't it? I've brought this example and thesis for you because I'd like you to forget a bit about IT projects now for a few minutes, okay? Let's try to find the answer together to this question. I love cooking. I do a lot of cooking at home. I don't own any restaurants. Hopefully, when I'm successful enough in my upcoming 10, 15 years, I'll be able to leave IT behind, which I, of course, love, but I kind of tend to enjoy cooking a bit more. You get a much quicker positive response when cooking something nice than when you start IT projects, right? Okay, so this is why I thought we'll come up with this example. Hopefully, many of you have also tried cooking at least scrambled eggs in your life before, or cooking a tea, so you will get the idea what's here behind. Okay, so let's try to find the answer to this question, okay? What is the amount and level of detailedness needed when you cook from a recipe? Let's just think a bit about what the detailedness of a recipe could be. I've brought you two extreme examples about recipes. The first one is a very detailed one. It describes each and every step that you have to undertake to cook. Actually, this is about mashed potatoes, so we keep it quite simple. This is a very detailed specification, right? So you take 12 pieces of potatoes, Latin name is also there, just to make sure that you don't start with carrots or anything. Weighing between 34 and 56 grams, whereas total sum falling between 412 and 523 grams. Take a bowl made of plastic, steel, wood, with 4 liters of volume. Rim size should fall between 23 and 32 centimeters. Fill bowl with 3.45 liters of water, H2O, just to make sure, okay, water temperature should be between 23 and 38 degrees Celsius. Insert potatoes into bowl and start scrubbing surface with medium-sized plastic brush by applying moderate pressure to remove dirt, okay? We haven't cooked anything yet. We haven't even started peeling the potatoes yet. And already we have one densely written page of written specification, right? So you might imagine that this would go on like 30, 40 other pages like that until we get our mashed potato. On the other extreme end, so the very roughly detailed specification for making mashed potatoes is this. Whoa. If you've ever done mashed potatoes, you do it once, you do it twice, you do it after you've done it 3 times, there's no need to specify anything about it because it's so simple. You just chop up the potatoes, cook it in the water, put some salt in it, add butter, add milk, smash it, and then it's done. That's it, okay? So if you're an experienced cook, this is all you need. This is all the specification you need. Serve with mashed potatoes, okay? And you, by both cases, come to the same result. Which is the one that's necessary for us to take, okay? Either one can be okay. If you are a very inexperienced, or maybe if you're from outer space and have not really seen anything about potatoes and you don't know anything about life here on Earth, then you probably need something like this. An experienced cook would already go with this, right? So when we're looking for the answer about what the right detailedness, the specification is, maybe we will have to look at something else, and let's just check the circumstances about this. So the first question I would ask is, who's the cook? This is Gordon Ramsay. Do you know Gordon Ramsay? Yeah, he's the most badass chef, I guess, in the world. He doesn't need any specifications, I guess, to make mashed potatoes, right? He cannot even make simple mashed potatoes, but he would do it with, I don't know, truffles and olives and stuff, because he's so professional, okay. What if my cook is the guy from McDonald's who's been doing exclusively putting the pickles on hamburger meat and turning the hamburger meat over and over again by an exact specification. What if I tell him, go ahead and make mashed potatoes? He cannot do it without a recipe because he's so used to working by a strict process, okay? So he will probably go into the other direction and need something more detailed. This is my 4-year-old daughter. Does she need, and she's working with her grandma, they're making donuts here. Does she need a specification, a written specification to make the donut? Of course not, because she cannot read. She cannot do anything with a written specification. So she will need other means of information gathering in order to get the information she needs. So it's also writing down everything, specifying everything on paper in great detail for her will not bring much, all right? Let's consider what we're cooking also, right? We're talking about buttered bread, and it's quite easy, right? I can say it in one sentence, and you don't need to go into many details about this. On the other hand, if you're cooking something like this stuff, this is a sort of food from one of the Hungarian Michelin star restaurants, but I can't tell you what this is. This looks like something from outer space. You would probably need a specification already in the menu to find out what this is. So, of course, if you have a system that's very simple, and if you have a system that's very complex, and this is the point that we'll come to later, you will need completely different approaches when writing the specification. The third and very important, maybe the most important approach from all of this are other sources of information that are available when you start cooking, okay? There is of course common sense first of all. So you don't start cooking the potato without water, even if it's not written there. You might have completed some cookery courses, or you might be watching the TV, the cooking programs all day long. This brings you extra information. There's always the silver bullet, to call your mother. My mother knows everything about cooking, so no matter what it is, I call her up, she always has the answer. Okay, and there's also your own creativity, meaning you understand what's happening within the areas of the kitchen. You know what where you're trying to get to. You know the ingredients you have, and you have your own creativity and ideas, and you find your own way into this. You don't need to put everything down. And all this adds up and leads us to finding what the detailedness and the amount of recipe really necessary is. And I think you're already getting my point now, and now we'll quickly move to move this over and move back to IT, and would like you to come and follow me in going through all these points again, but now from the IT perspective. Okay. So let's try to find the answer, this more or less the same answer, but now concentrating on agile projects and on testing. So let's first consider, when setting in your project, what the detailedness and level of specification should be. Let's check first who your tester is, or who your testers are. It could be somebody who's just out of university, who's just finished his first testing course and exam and just read the first book about testing and is completely new to the topic. It also could be somebody who's never been, when we're talking about financial projects, that I've also been doing quite a lot. This could be his first day at the bank. It could be the first time he's ever facing anything that has anything to do with money. So he has no experience at all. Or on the other hand, this could be somebody who's been doing financial IT projects for 25 years, and he's seen already everything that's ever there in this market. Of course, the one who's new needs more detailed specifications than the other one. How much agile experience the testers have. If you've already done 5, 10 numerous successful or first unsuccessful, then moderately successful, and later successful agile projects, then you already know the ceremonies, you know what's happening in an agile project. The same is true for plan-driven experience, which interestingly can be a drawback. So if you've done 25 years of plan-driven V-model projects and it's burnt into your brain that the only way to work is to first put down 1,000 pages long specification on the table, then of course it's going to be kind of a drawback to start and switch into agile mode. And that's the personal mentality, of course, as well. What are we testing? You remember the difference between buttered bread and food from outer space, right? So system complexity and size determines this. The business domain, is this something that's easily understandable, like a web shop, for example, which each of us use and know on a daily basis, in contrary to a treasury system at a bank? And what is the technology that the project uses is also very important. Okay, and the third major factor is where we get information other than the specification. What is the level of expert involvement in this? Is the product owner sitting there in the project together with everybody 40 hours a day? No, sorry, 40 hours a week. You're not listening. It's impossible, right? Okay, so is he there all the time, available for questions? Or is it somebody, for us working in Budapest, who's sitting in San Francisco in a time zone that has 8 or 9 hours a shift to where we are working, and he's not available to question maybe at all, except for maybe sending a few emails? Of course, it's a different situation. Do we receive customer feedback or do we not? Is it easy to get answers from the end customer, from the ones who will finally use the system? Or are they somebody who are sitting out there? Maybe it's a product for everybody, like an iPhone application where you cannot directly ask the customer. Okay, have you done any trainings? And this is the common planning event. It's also a very important event that's happening or should be happening at every agile project. Are the testers participating there? Are they actively there? Are they gathering all the information needed or not? Okay. Team communication and team spirit is also a very important factor. I've seen people sitting in the same room, 20, 30 of them, not saying a word all day long, but working in an agile method. But this is not really the thing, because if they don't communicate with each other, then it's no use sitting together in the same room. On the other hand, if you have people who like each other, are used to work with each other, then there's simply much less need for writing anything down. Okay, and of course, the tools and the methods that you use is also something that defines all this. So all this comes up and sums up the specification need for an agile project. And the point I'm trying to get to, and the message I'd like to bring you, is to stop thinking only in this circle here below. So do not focus only on written specification, because your agile project and the information about what the software should be doing that you will be testing is the sum of all this that you see here. If you're a test manager, test coordinator, building up a project, then think in all of these factors and not just this one, okay? Because this is what adds up your whole or entire project and experience and the result. And one last extra message to the end, okay? It's maybe a little warning and a little extra, something that you should never forget. It's not the specification we're working for, but it's, in the end, it's the software that should be okay. So no matter how much time you spend with specifying and setting the right level of details for specification, always bear in mind that there's a software at the end that needs to be okay, okay? Don't forget, whenever you go into a restaurant and you don't like the food, okay, it's not going to make you happy when the chef comes up to you and says, okay, the recipe was kind of bad, so sorry about this. Okay. Okay, that was what I wanted to bring you today. Thank you for your attention. If you have any questions, or are we out of time? No. If you have any questions, yes.
Thank you very much for this nice presentation. If you have the knowledge, I mean, if you have the information, all the information that you just pictured on your presentation, then you can decide how detailed level of specification you need. That's understood. Do you have experience in outsourcing projects? So when you outsource a project, obviously, you may have no experience with the vendor who will bring the software in. So you don't know what level of specification you may need to prepare. So how would you balance it, or how would you choose? Obviously, you don't want probably to over-specify everything, but also you don't want to just give a very vague specification. So there is a contractual, anyway, a contract in between. So the party might come back and say that, hey, you did write that an error message should be returned, but you didn't write there. What is the error message? What exactly is it? So I put this error message, so if you want me to fix that, you will have to pay me this much money to fix that particular implementation. So what is your experience, if you have? How detailed the specification should be, or what are those points that you should take into consideration when specifying something for a vendor, for an outsourcing project?
Okay, I think this is, thank you for the question. And this is also pointing back to the other factors around. So what I would definitely consider is whether this is a new contract, a new vendor that I've not worked with before, or is this somebody who's been supplying my company for 10 years and knows the domain and knows my expectations, knows my house rules, my architecture, whatever there is, knows the people who work for me within my company. Do they have personal contact or not at all? If it's the first case, so if it's a new business relation with somebody, then I would say I would definitely put more emphasis on writing things down and putting things into and simply more detailed specifications. And it does not mean that you have to write thousands of pages again, but whenever, well, if you're talking about, are you talking about an agile project, or are you talking about just in general? Let's talk about agile. If you talk about the agile method or agile approach, then you have, for each sprint, you have a set of items from your product backlog that you need to implement in the next upcoming sprint. And there you always have a decision point, I think, how much time and money you invest, or the time you invest into specifying each of those points. When you're at the beginning of a project, beginning of a relationship, you are uncertain about the team and team cooperation, then I would definitely try to go secure and put more work into specifying everything in more detail. If it starts working, then I would later on, in later project phases, probably after discussing it with the team, start cutting down and making it simpler. This is I think what's very important in general. But otherwise, you can always consider these now invisible, not readable factors that are up there. So, okay. Okay. Thank you very much.
Thanks.